Imagine staying calm in the middle of rush hour traffic, holding your ground during a tense conversation with your boss, or keeping your emotions steady while facing a personal storm. It almost sounds impossible, doesn't it? But this is the quiet strength of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that has helped warriors, emperors, and everyday people navigate life's chaos with grace and clarity. Stoicism isn't about being cold or detached. It's about mastering the one thing we truly own: our thoughts, our actions, and our responses. Everything else, from the economy to the behavior of others, is beyond our control. And once we truly accept this, a weight lifts. We stop wasting energy trying to control the uncontrollable and start focusing on building our character, our choices, our discipline, our integrity. When we live this way, peace is no longer dependent on outside events. It comes from within. It becomes something we carry with us, even in the face of hardship. In this video, we'll explore 11 powerful lessons from Stoicism that will help you remain calm, composed, and clear, no matter what life throws at you. These aren't just ancient ideas. They're timeless tools for mastering your mind and shaping a stronger, wiser you. Lesson number 1. Embrace what you can control. At the foundation of Stoic philosophy lies one of the most powerful ideas you can apply to your life: the concept of control. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, taught that our lives are divided into two categories. There are things within our control and things that are completely outside of it. This idea may seem simple at first, but once you truly understand it, it becomes a game changer. You start to realize how much time and energy is wasted trying to change things you were never meant to control. And in that realization, you unlock a new kind of peace. What do we actually have power over? Our thoughts, our actions, our intentions, and the way we choose to respond to events. That is where our true strength lies. On the other hand, things like other people's opinions, the weather, the economy, or the outcome of our efforts do not fall within our influence. Yet most people live their lives in reverse. They obsess over outcomes, seek constant approval, and get frustrated when the world does not behave the way they want. Stoicism invites us to flip that mindset and focus only on what belongs to us. Epictetus once used the image of an archer to explain this idea. The archer can aim, train, and draw the bow with perfect form. But once the arrow is released, it is no longer up to him. A gust of wind, a movement from the target, or a slight shift in the environment can change the result. But the archer is not judged by whether the arrow hits or misses. He is judged by his discipline, by the care he took in aiming, and by how well he performed what was within his control. This metaphor teaches us to find peace in our efforts, not in the results. Embracing this mindset does not mean we stop trying or striving. It means we release the need to control the uncontrollable and pour all our energy into mastering what we can. It means we focus on our daily habits, our character, and the choices we make when life throws challenges at us. This is not weakness. It is one of the greatest strengths a person can develop. When we stop clinging to expectations and start honoring our responsibility to ourselves, we rise above the chaos around us. The more we internalize this principle, the more freedom we begin to experience. No longer do we let every little setback shake our confidence. No longer do we hand over our peace to things we cannot influence. We become anchored, steady, and calm, even when life feels uncertain. In a world that constantly pulls us in every direction, Stoicism gives us something solid to hold on to. When you embrace what you can control, you reclaim your life from distraction, fear, and disappointment. You begin to live with clarity, purpose, and an unshakable sense of calm that no outside force can take away. Lesson number 2. The power of acceptance. When life brings hardship or uncertainty, most people resist. They fight against reality, wishing things were different, hoping to change what cannot be changed. But Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, teaches us something radically different. He urges us to accept what is, to stop struggling against the nature of life, and instead learn to live in harmony with it. This is not about giving up. It is about finding strength in surrender. It is about understanding that acceptance is not weakness, but a doorway to lasting peace. Life moves in cycles. There are moments of joy, and there are seasons of pain. There is success, and there is loss. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that these fluctuations are not problems to be fixed, but patterns to be understood. When we try to control everything or resist what we do not like, We create suffering within ourselves. But when we accept life as it is, we open ourselves to growth, to clarity, and to emotional resilience. In his meditations, he returns to this lesson again and again. That nature does what it must, and our job is not to argue with reality, but to rise and meet it with grace. Imagine a ship at sea. The wind changes, the waves rise and fall, the skies darken without warning. The captain cannot control the ocean, but he can learn to sail. Acceptance is the same. It allows us to move through life without being shattered by every change in circumstance. It teaches us to respond instead of react, to bend without breaking. It is the mindset that says, "This is happening and I will face it with dignity." It is an inner posture that lets us stay composed in the face of uncertainty. To accept something does not mean we approve of it, or that we welcome pain. It simply means we acknowledge the truth of this moment, and from that place of clarity, we choose our next step. We are not pushed around by circumstances because we are anchored in reality. Marcus Aurelius believed that when we stop resisting what we cannot change, we reclaim our freedom. Acceptance clears the fog. It reveals a path forward. It turns hardship into a teacher and struggle into strength. When you start to accept life on life's terms, everything changes. You stop living in denial. You stop fighting the inevitable. And you begin to find power in presence. You begin to grow through the things that once defeated you. This is the power of Stoic acceptance. It allows you to walk through life with steady breath and a calm mind, knowing that no matter what happens, you have the strength to endure it with purpose and peace. Lesson number 3. Practice mindfulness. Seneca, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, offers us a vital lesson for cultivating calm and composure in the middle of life's constant motion, the practice of mindfulness. In Stoic philosophy, mindfulness is not just a technique, it is a way of being. It is the art of fully inhabiting the present moment, of bringing your awareness back to where your life is actually unfolding here and now. In a world filled with distractions, regrets, and anxiety about the future, this skill becomes not just helpful, but necessary. The Stoics believed that most of our suffering does not come from the events of life themselves, but from our thoughts about them. Our minds get pulled backward into the past, reliving what went wrong, or they race ahead into the future, fearing what might go wrong. In doing so, we disconnect from what is real. Seneca warns us that time slips through our fingers when we are not present. He teaches that the present moment is the only time that truly belongs to us. It is our most valuable possession, and yet, it is often the one we neglect. To practice Stoic mindfulness is to bring our full awareness to this moment, not to escape the world, but to engage with it more clearly. It is to look closely at life, not just during dramatic events, but in the quiet, ordinary routines. Whether you are washing dishes, walking through a park, or speaking with a friend, mindfulness invites you to be fully there. The Stoics encourage us to observe our surroundings with gratitude, to monitor our thoughts without judgment, and to choose our actions with care. Mindfulness in Stoicism is not about eliminating thought. It is about creating space between the thought and the reaction. It gives us the clarity to recognize when our emotions are about to take over, and the power to pause before we respond. In that pause, we gain control. We begin to respond with wisdom rather than react with impulse. Seneca reminds us that the mind, when trained to stay present, becomes a sanctuary, a place where clarity lives and peace grows. By practicing mindfulness, we build the ability to remain grounded no matter how turbulent life becomes. We stop being pulled in every direction by external events and begin to develop a stable center within ourselves. This presence becomes our anchor. It allows us to live more intentionally, to see more clearly, and to act more purposefully. In a world that constantly competes for our attention, mindfulness brings us back to ourselves. It gives us the strength to live deeply in each moment, and from that depth we draw real calm, real clarity, and real power. Lesson number 4. Cultivate resilience. In the vast landscape of Stoic thought, few lessons echo as powerfully as the call to resilience. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who rose from slavery to become one of the wisest teachers of his time, reminds us that adversity is not something to fear. It is something to face, to learn from, and to use as a tool for transformation. For the Stoics, resilience is not just about surviving hardship. It is about using every challenge as an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more disciplined in character. Life will test you. It will bring setbacks, pain, failure, and loss. But Epictetus tells us that these experiences do not define us. What defines us is how we respond. Do we crumble under pressure, or do we rise with strength and purpose? The Stoics believed that adversity is a natural part of life, not a punishment. It is the training ground where our true character is forged. And just like steel is hardened by fire, our spirit is strengthened by difficulty. Epictetus teaches that the real danger is not in the event itself, but in our interpretation of it. He urges us to question our judgments, to look at pain not as something unfair, but as a test of our inner resolve. When we see challenges through the lens of Stoicism, they become less frightening. They become teachers. Each obstacle becomes a mirror, revealing who we are and what we still need to refine within ourselves. And it is through this process that we build resilience, not by avoiding struggle, but by stepping into it with courage and clarity. Resilience in the Stoic sense is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet. It is steady. It is the strength that allows you to keep moving forward when everything around you feels uncertain. It is the choice to remain calm under pressure, to stay focused when fear creeps in, and to act with integrity when the easy path would be to give up. The Stoic warrior does not seek comfort. He seeks mastery. And through every trial, he sharpens the virtues that lead to inner freedom. This mindset is not just for moments of crisis. It is a daily practice. Every time you respond with patience instead of anger, you build resilience. Every time you endure a difficult moment without complaining, you become stronger. And every time you choose discipline over distraction, you prove to yourself that you can weather more than you thought. The Stoic path is not about escaping hardship. It is about becoming someone who is unshaken by it. In cultivating resilience, you prepare yourself to face life with dignity and strength. You learn to see pain not as the enemy, but as the forge where your best self is created. And in that process, you become capable of meeting life's storms with a steady gaze and an unbreakable spirit. Lesson number 5. Choose your response. Epictetus, the wise Stoic teacher, offers us one of the most empowering truths in all of philosophy. While we may not control what happens to us, we always control how we respond. In a world that feels unpredictable and overwhelming, this truth becomes a source of stability. It reminds us that no matter the chaos outside, we still hold the steering wheel within. This is not just a comforting idea. It is a call to take full responsibility for our inner life. It is a challenge to respond to life with intention instead of impulse. At the center of Stoic teaching lies this powerful belief. Our reactions are our choice. That space between what happens and how we act is where our freedom lives. We may face betrayal, disappointment, loss, or injustice, but how we interpret those events, how we speak, how we act, and how we carry ourselves afterward is always ours to decide. Epictetus urges us to guard that freedom fiercely. Because in a world filled with external forces, our response is the one thing that can never be taken from us unless we give it away. The Stoics taught that in every situation we are presented with a chance to choose. We can choose anger or patience. We can choose fear or courage. We can choose to escalate conflict or to bring calm. And this choice, repeated again and again, becomes our character. It becomes the person we are becoming. This is why Stoicism places so much importance on self-awareness, because only when we are aware of our thoughts and emotions can we consciously guide them toward wisdom, virtue, and peace. When we fail to recognize our power to respond, we live like leaves in the wind, blown in every direction by what others say or do. But when we own our response, we take back control of our lives. We stop being victims of circumstance and start becoming authors of our destiny. The Stoics believe that in choosing our response, we align ourselves with the virtues they cherished most: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These are not abstract ideals. They are practical tools that help us stay calm, composed, and true to ourselves, no matter what life brings. To choose your response is to reclaim your strength. It is to stand in a storm and say, "I will not be moved by what I cannot control. I will lead myself." And this mindset becomes a shield against chaos. It gives you clarity when emotions rise. It gives you stability when everything else feels uncertain. In every challenge, in every moment of stress, the Stoic asks one simple question: what is the best response I can choose right now? And in that question, we find power, we find peace, we find ourselves. Lesson number 6. Limit excessive desires. In the rich and disciplined teachings of Stoicism, Seneca offers us a lesson that speaks directly to the unrest many people feel today. It is the lesson of moderation. At its core, this teaching is a reminder that peace is not found in having more, but in needing less. The Stoics believed that excessive desires, the constant craving for wealth, attention, luxury, or status, are among the greatest threats to our inner calm. When our happiness depends on things we do not have, or things we are afraid to lose, we chain ourselves to anxiety, frustration, and emptiness. Seneca warns us that the pursuit of endless desires is like drinking salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you become. In modern life, this warning is more relevant than ever. Social media, advertising, and comparison constantly push us to want more, to feel like we are never enough unless we achieve more or acquire more. But Stoicism cuts through this illusion with clarity. It teaches us to ask, what is truly necessary for a good life? What brings lasting peace, not just temporary pleasure? The Stoics were not against material things. They simply believed that those things should serve us, not rule us. They encouraged simplicity not out of deprivation, but out of strength. Because when you are content with what you already have, you are no longer controlled by what you lack. You become free. You begin to discover that the greatest treasures, wisdom, virtue, and inner stability cannot be bought, lost, or stolen. They live within you and they grow stronger when you stop chasing what does not matter. Seneca reminds us that a wise person does not measure life by the abundance of possessions, but by the richness of character. When we learn to limit our desires, we quiet the noise within. We stop running from one craving to the next. We stop looking outside ourselves for happiness. And in that stillness, we begin to feel whole. This is not about living in poverty. It is about living with purpose. It is about recognizing that what you truly need is often much less than what the world tells you to want. Every time you resist the pull of unnecessary desire, you strengthen your inner calm. Every time you choose gratitude over greed, you reclaim your freedom. The Stoic path of moderation is not a life of lack, but a life of power. It puts you back in control. It allows you to walk through the world without being swayed by every temptation or trend. In limiting your desires, you create space for what truly matters: integrity, self-mastery, and a lasting sense of peace that no amount of wealth could ever replace. Lesson number 7. Be virtuous. At the heart of Stoic philosophy is one unwavering principle: live with virtue. To the Stoics, virtue is not just a lofty ideal, but the foundation of a good and peaceful life. Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius all agreed that true happiness does not come from fame, fortune, or success. It comes from living in alignment with the highest values: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These 4 virtues were not just moral suggestions. They were the compass by which Stoics navigated every decision, every challenge, and every moment of their lives. Wisdom is the first of these virtues, and perhaps the most important. It calls us to see things clearly, to understand what is within our control and what is not. Wisdom urges us to pause before acting, to seek truth rather than simply follow emotion or habit. It teaches us to value reason, to learn constantly, and to grow from every experience. With wisdom, we step out of the fog of ignorance and into the light of clarity. And once we see clearly, we begin to act with purpose. Courage is the second virtue, the one that empowers us to do what is right even when it is hard. Life will always present fear, discomfort, and risk. But the Stoics believed that without courage, no other virtue can be fully expressed. It takes courage to speak honestly, to stand up for justice, to admit when we are wrong, and to choose discipline over ease. Stoic courage is not reckless. It is steady and determined. It is the quiet strength that faces hardship without complaint and continues forward with a firm and focused heart. Justice is the third pillar of the Stoic life. It teaches us to live with fairness, compassion, and integrity. The Stoics believed we are all connected, and that the good of the individual must be linked to the good of the whole. Justice calls us to treat others with dignity, to honor our responsibilities, and to act in ways that benefit not just ourselves, but our communities and the world around us. A virtuous person is not selfish. They are guided by a deep sense of duty to something larger than themselves. Finally, there is temperance, the virtue of self-control. Temperance is what allows us to manage our desires, to resist overindulgence, and to remain calm when provoked. It is the strength that helps us walk the middle path, avoiding extremes and choosing balance in all things. When we live with temperance, we are not pulled by every craving or overwhelmed by every emotion. We act with clarity, not compulsion. We stay grounded, focused, and free. Living with virtue is not always easy. It takes effort, awareness, and discipline, but the Stoics believe that nothing is more rewarding. Because when you live with virtue, you create a life that is unshakable. You are no longer at the mercy of external events. You find peace not in the absence of problems, but in the presence of purpose. You wake up each day knowing who you are and what you stand for. And that certainty becomes your shield. To be virtuous is to build a legacy. It is to walk through life with your head high, your conscience clear, and your heart strong. The Stoic philosophers lived by this code not to impress others, but to cultivate inner strength. And they teach us that no matter what life throws our way, we always have the power to respond with integrity. In a world full of noise, confusion, and temptation, virtue becomes the path back to yourself. It becomes your anchor, your compass, and your greatest source of peace. Lesson number 8. Understand the transitory nature of life. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor and philosopher, offers us one of the most humbling and liberating teachings in all of Stoicism. The understanding that everything in life is temporary. Every joy, every sorrow, every achievement, and every loss, all of it is part of a larger, ever-changing current. Nothing lasts forever. And instead of fearing that truth, the Stoics embraced it. They believed that by accepting the impermanence of life, we can live more fully, more peacefully, and more courageously. Life is always moving. Seasons shift, relationships evolve, moments come and go, and even we ourselves are constantly changing. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he, like everyone else, was only here for a short while, that his power, his title, and even his thoughts were fleeting. Far from making him feel hopeless, this awareness made him more grounded. It helped him let go of things that didn't matter. It made him more present, more grateful, and more focused on what was truly important, living with wisdom and virtue while time allowed. Understanding the transitory nature of life helps us release the grip of attachment. We stop clinging so tightly to outcomes, possessions, or even identities. We begin to accept change, not as a threat, but as the natural rhythm of the universe. When we hold on too tightly, we suffer, but when we accept the flow, we find peace. We learn to appreciate the beauty of each moment without trying to possess it. We learn to love deeply without trying to control. We learn to act purposefully while being unattached to how things turn out. The Stoics taught that everything we value, our health, our reputation, our relationships, can change in an instant. But this is not a reason to live in fear. It is a reason to live with awareness. It is a reason to cherish what we have while we have it, to give our best while we still can. Impermanence, when understood clearly, does not make life meaningless. It makes it sacred. It makes every smile, every sunrise, and every act of kindness more precious. Because we know we won't have them forever. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to remember that even the grandest cities, the most powerful rulers, and the greatest works of art would one day vanish, and so would he. But instead of despairing, he saw this as a call to live well while he could, to contribute, to serve, to think deeply, and to love wisely. He saw each day as a gift, and he acted with the knowledge that tomorrow was never promised. That awareness gave him strength, it gave him focus, and it helped him keep calm even in the face of loss or uncertainty. To understand the transitory nature of life is to see through the illusion of permanence. It is to stop wasting time on things that won't matter in the end. It is to start asking better questions. Who do I want to be in this brief moment I've been given? What legacy do I want to leave behind? What impact do I want to make, not just for today, but for the people who come after me? The Stoics teach us that the answer to these questions is found not in fear, but in clarity, not in clinging, but in letting go. When you live with the awareness that everything changes, you become stronger, not weaker. You begin to let go of resentment. You stop taking things personally. You stop chasing what fades and start building what lasts. And in that space, that calm acceptance of life's impermanence, you find peace that no external thing can give or take away. You discover the quiet power of living fully, loving freely, and acting with integrity in the fleeting moment that is now. Lesson number 9. The value of gratitude. Among the many timeless teachings of Stoicism, one stands out as both deeply simple and profoundly transformative: the practice of gratitude. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest minds, teaches that gratitude is not something we reserve only for the moments when life goes our way. It is a mindset, a daily discipline, and a way of seeing the world that transforms even our most difficult experiences into opportunities for inner growth. Gratitude to the Stoic is not a passive emotion. It is a powerful force that grounds us in the present and unlocks peace within us. In a world that constantly tells us to chase more wealth, more status, more success, gratitude calls us to pause and appreciate what we already have. It brings our attention back to the richness of life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Seneca believed that we suffer not because we lack, but because we fail to recognize the abundance already around us: a roof over your head, a meal on your table, a friend who listens, a body that breathes. These are not small things. These are gifts, and when we see them clearly, we begin to feel whole, even if everything isn't perfect. The Stoic view of gratitude goes even further. It teaches us to be grateful not just for the pleasant moments, but for the challenges as well. Why? Because adversity strengthens character, because discomfort sharpens clarity, because every hardship is an invitation to develop patience, courage, and resilience. When you begin to see your struggles as blessings in disguise, your relationship with life changes completely. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can this teach me?" And that shift is where transformation begins. Gratitude also quiets the mind. It interrupts the cycle of complaining, comparing, and always wanting something else. When you choose gratitude, you step out of scarcity and into sufficiency. You stop measuring your life by what is missing and start measuring it by what is meaningful. Seneca reminds us that contentment does not come from having everything, but from appreciating everything you already have. Gratitude turns ordinary days into sacred moments. It turns burdens into lessons. It turns your attention away from what you cannot control and back toward what truly matters. But gratitude is not something you feel only when things go well. It is something you practice deliberately, even when life is difficult, especially when life is difficult, and that is where its power lies. A heart full of gratitude does not collapse under pressure. It rises. It finds beauty in imperfection. It sees opportunity where others see lack. This kind of gratitude is not shallow optimism. It is deep wisdom. It is the choice to focus on what is present, not what is absent. To honor what is given, not just mourn what is taken. To live with gratitude is to live with presence. It is to walk through the world awake to the gifts that surround you, no matter how small. It is to greet each moment with open hands, knowing that even in pain there is purpose. Even in loss, there is still something to learn. The Stoics believed that this practice of thankful awareness is what shields the mind from bitterness and despair. Because when you are truly grateful, you are not shaken by what you lack. You are empowered by what you hold within. When you cultivate gratitude, you build strength that cannot be broken. You build a life of richness that is independent of wealth. And you begin to see that peace does not come from getting everything you want. It comes from realizing you already have more than enough to be at peace today. Lesson number 10. Keep learning and growing. In the quiet wisdom of Epictetus, there is a message that resonates through every chapter of Stoic philosophy: never stop learning. Never stop growing. The Stoics understood that life is not a fixed state, but a journey of constant evolution. Every day is an opportunity to sharpen your mind, refine your character, and become more aligned with the virtues that define a meaningful life. Growth for the Stoic is not about ambition or competition. It is about transformation. It is about the daily commitment to becoming better than you were yesterday. Epictetus taught that while we do not control the world around us, we do control how we choose to develop ourselves. We are not born wise, disciplined, or resilient. We become those things through effort, reflection, and a willingness to keep learning, especially from failure. Life, with all its trials and unpredictability, is the perfect classroom. Every mistake reveals something. Every difficulty teaches something. The only real failure is refusing to learn from what life is trying to show us. The Stoics believed that learning was not limited to books or lectures, but found in every moment of life. A conversation, a setback, a quiet morning, a difficult decision. These are all teachers if you are open to their lessons. Growth does not require grand gestures, it requires daily awareness. It requires the humility to admit you don't know everything and the courage to question your assumptions. When you embrace this mindset, you begin to see every experience as a stepping stone toward the person you are becoming. This path of lifelong growth is not a race. It is not about reaching a final destination. It is about committing to the process. The Stoics knew that mastery is never finished. There's always more to learn, more to refine, more to understand. Even Marcus Aurelius, the ruler of one of the greatest empires in history, wrote in his private journal not as a teacher, but as a student. A man reminding himself to be humble, to stay grounded, to keep improving. If someone with all the power in the world saw the need for daily growth, so should we. Choosing to grow is choosing to rise above stagnation. It is choosing to meet each day with curiosity instead of complacency. It is choosing to respond to setbacks not with defeat, but with determination. And this commitment gives us something priceless: the ability to adapt, to evolve, and to face life with clarity and strength no matter what comes. It is what allows us to build a resilient, peaceful inner world, even when the outside world is uncertain. When you walk the Stoic path of growth, you stop waiting for life to make you stronger. You start making yourself stronger through discipline, reflection, and learning. You stop avoiding discomfort, and instead you use it to shape your mind and sharpen your values. You recognize that true power is not found in avoiding challenges, but in your ability to grow through them. The Stoics knew that learning is not about chasing perfection, but embracing progress. Each day is another chance to learn something that makes you wiser, calmer, and more in control of yourself. And the more you learn, the more peaceful your life becomes. Because growth brings clarity, it brings freedom, it brings purpose, and it reminds you that no matter where you started, you can always become more than you were, one decision, one lesson, one moment at a time. Lesson number 11. Spend time alone to strengthen your soul. In a world that constantly pulls us in every direction, the Stoics remind us of a truth many have forgotten. Solitude is not something to fear, it is something to seek. It is in moments of silence, away from the noise of the crowd, that our deepest growth occurs. Marcus Aurelius, even while ruling the Roman Empire, carved out time each day for solitude and reflection. He understood that the most important conversations are not the ones we have with others, but the ones we have with ourselves. And in those quiet moments, we strengthen the foundation of our soul. Stoicism teaches us that true peace begins within. But how can we develop that inner peace if we never stop to listen to what is happening inside us? Time alone is not about isolation. It is about reconnecting with your core values, facing your thoughts without distraction, and learning to be at home in your own mind. Solitude is where clarity is born. It is where distractions fade, and the truth becomes visible. It is where you remember what matters most, not what others think, but who you truly are. When we spend time alone, we become less reactive. We stop being pulled in by every opinion, every demand, every external expectation. We start choosing our responses more wisely, because we're not simply echoing the noise of the world. We are acting from a place of self-awareness and calm. The Stoics practiced journaling, meditation, and self-examination not as rituals, but as essential disciplines. They knew that silence is not empty. It is full of answers, full of wisdom, and full of strength. Many people avoid solitude because they are afraid of what they will find, but the Stoics teach us to face that fear, to sit with discomfort, to ask hard questions, because it is only by doing so that we develop the mental and emotional resilience needed to lead ourselves through life. Time alone reveals where we are drifting off course. It allows us to realign. It gives us space to slow down, to heal, and to grow. In that space, we refine our principles, renew our commitment to virtue, and become more solid, more centered, and more prepared for whatever life brings. Spending time alone also strengthens our independence. It reminds us that we do not need constant affirmation to feel worthy, and we do not need to be surrounded by people to feel connected. Solitude shows us that we can be whole on our own, that we can be our own source of calm, that we can lead ourselves first before trying to lead anyone else. And this inner leadership is what makes all other forms of strength possible. The Stoics were not retreating from life. They were preparing for it. They built inner fortresses that no storm could shake, and they trained their minds not in isolation from the world, but in quiet moments of reflection, solitude, and truth. Solitude was never their escape. It was their sharpening ground, a place where they returned to themselves, strengthened their soul, and reminded themselves of what truly mattered. You now carry with you 11 lessons that can reshape how you live, lessons that challenge you to focus only on what you can control, to respond with courage, to live with virtue, to stay present, to grow constantly, and to rise above the chaos with quiet clarity. These are not just ideas. They are practices. They are anchors in a world that never stops moving. So take the time, step back from the noise, reflect, think deeply, choose to grow. Let these Stoic truths become your compass. Because when you live with this kind of awareness, you stop fearing silence. You begin to treasure it. You stop being reactive and start being deliberate. And when you are strong in solitude, steady in your responses, and committed to living with purpose, you become unstoppable. Not in the loudest way, but in the calmest. This is the Stoic path. This is the way to lasting inner peace. And it starts with the choice you make today.